Hello, everybody, and welcome to our show on gaslighting. It should be an interesting topic, and I think you will find that gaslighting is not just about relationships that have to do with love. Well, it is love. Maybe we can say it's love, but let me say it doesn't just have to do with romance. So let's get to it. Okay, this time I muted myself. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Tonight's topic is on gaslighting. It doesn't just have to do with romantic relationships, should I say. It can do with familial relationships, work relationships, just relationships of all kinds. Interestingly enough, if you look back on a lot of your even friendships, you may find that you have been a victim of gaslighting. I'm assuming that everyone knows what gaslighting is. The term gaslighting came about decades ago from a film called Gaslight. And the female star was Ingrid Bergman. And I believe the movie came about because I haven't watched the movie, I have to admit, not that I'm aware of, but the man in the movie was trying to convince the female that she was crazy, and he was taking her reality away, and each night he would do things like dim the lights to try to make her feel like it was getting darker in there, although he was doing things like dimming the light and then making her feel like it was perfectly the same, although he was manipulating things. Basically, gaslighting is a manipulation of reality, making you question your reality. Many of you may have heard in your lifetime, oh, you're just being too sensitive. Or, that's not the way it is. Or, you're being paranoid. That's not the way I remember it. Maybe you just had a bad dream. Or another thing is, that is not at all how it happened. That's not what they said. You don't know what you're talking about. Your memory's gone bad. How many of you have had such experiences? And it often happens to children. And it can do a lot of harm to small children. If you're gaslighted enough, you begin to second guess yourself. Often to small children, it can create an environment where you don't learn to make decisions for yourself. It creates anxiety, insecurity. You're afraid to go out in the world by yourself. You have to find another person that you latch on or connect to, that you feel secure with, like a security blanket that can make decisions for you or can give you that atta girl or atta boy so you know you're going in the right direction. It can create all kinds of crazy dynamics for children in particular. And a lot of abusers use this behavior frequently. A lot of sociopaths and people that mean to either, do away with people use this often. You'll often find this when you look at homicide stories or what have you, because they want to skew the reality of their victims. You'll find this as an exercise to for the perpetrator to use on their victims, for lack of better, as a way to manipulate that person to do their bidding, or for the gaslighter to gain something from the person that they're gaslighting. It's a sense of gaining control. Now, there are people that gaslight other people and they're unconscious about doing it whatsoever, which is a sad state of affair. And in those cases, chances are they came from an environment of gaslighting. And it's just second nature to their being, a part of their personality, something that they were raised in. So that being said, let's see, Kennedy says, this is a huge tactic abusers love to use, especially when they run out of other defenses for their behavior. That is absolutely true. And it's also a tactic if you bring something up to someone that often gaslights, like you try to bring something to their attention that they are doing wrong or incorrect, they will often use this tactic to deflect back to you because they don't want to own their behavior. It happens time and time again. Jenny says, I appreciate that it's become such a popular term. For years, we all just let it happen without even realizing. Oh, girl, yeah. Look, I have had it happen to me. In my first marriage, it was a popular tool that he used. And look, I'm no dumb bunny, but for a long time, I don't think that I realized it was going on. And I caught myself, you're being gaslit too if you are making excuses for that person and trying to protect them in some way because you don't want people to think bad of them or to have an altered or negative opinion of them, because you feel like in the big picture of things that they're typically good or they're a better person than people might think, and you don't want them to take this instance and make a judgment. So you make excuses and try to make sure that other people see them in a better light. You're being a victim of being gaslit. And I mentioned that you struggle to make decisions on your own often because you have been so used to being gaslit that you do question your own judgments. Or you often question your own realities and wonder if you are remembering things correctly. So it helps to have other friends, if they've been in certain circumstances with you, that you touch base about certain memories that you have to make sure that you are remembering correctly, to make sure that you are all upstairs. And that's why I often tell people, people will poo-poo journaling. But especially if you are in a questionable relationship, I don't care if it's a family member, a lover, a husband, a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a friend. If you were journaling, even short paragraphs on the day-to-day, it helps you be aware if you are being gaslit or if people are just, manipulating you to their way of thinking and sort of skewing your awareness. Because you can go back to that journal and go, wait a minute, this did happen, or I am not crazy, or this confirms what I'm thinking. I'm going to drop the link because I would love to hear some of your thoughts and comments, or even memories or relationships, or questions for that matter, to see if you have felt like you have been in this situation. And here we go. Hey, at least I pressed live tonight. I just didn't put my mic on. And welcome to Dear Dana. And I ask that you please like and subscribe. I am so close to hitting 100. Once I hit 100, my link to find this channel gets smaller, and it actually puts Dear Dana on the end, which will be a huge hurdle for me, which would be so great. And I'd be so grateful. Here goes the link. Drop in the link. Do you see it? Here we go. I am so grateful and happy that you all are here once again. And yes, I do still get nervous. I don't know when that part will end. I'm trying to figure out how to drop some music and some jams in here, so occasionally we can get our party on. So I've dropped the link. If anybody would like to pop up and tell me a story or a relationship or something you're currently experiencing that you have dealt with or are dealing with or having a problem with, where you feel like you're being gaslit, it can even be a boss at work, or you need advice on how to deal with it currently, I'm all ears. Yes, I am. But it is such a tricky thing. And those that use it on a deeper, darker scale to victimize people, let me tell you, they are very charming. And they have learned how to coat it with diamonds. And they use it as a weapon. Those that are aware of having that skill use it as a weapon. And they can see it in your eyes when it's beginning to work. And they dig it a little deeper. So it's key to learn how to turn your alarms on when it's beginning, so you can learn how to protect yourself from it. The first key thing is the people that you can cut out of your life that do this to you, cut them out. Because they are not doing any good in your life, period. They serve no purpose for your greater good. If they are dispensable, you dispend of them. Now, people that are family or part of our jobs that we can't currently leave, that's a whole nother story. If they have been a lifetime friend and it's on a low level and you feel like you can stand up to it, there are ways that you can do this. Maybe they don't realize they're doing it. Those are the ones that are on the fine line of maybe you can work with this. But you have to be aware of it. I mean, there are moments you can say, look, I'm not going to let you gaslight me. I know what I'm talking about. That's when a photo helps, your journal helps, someone else that you went to this event helps. But if you have been a victim of gaslighting and it affected you in some way, I would like to hear from you. Do people feel uncomfortable speaking about it? Do you feel ashamed that you have dealt with this? When I think back to occurrences of it, here I am in the field that I went into. Of course, as I said, I'm currently teaching. I'm not taking clients at the moment. But be that as it may, in the field that I'm in, you think I would have known it was occurring. But when your emotions are attached, it's hard because your heart is invested in another human being. And as we all know, sometimes when our emotions are invested, we cut our brains off because we're thinking with our heart. We're not listening to our gut. We're not listening with our mind. We're thinking with our heart, and sometimes with other things. And we so want to believe in that other person. We want the other person to prove us wrong. We want the other person to prove to us that they are better than that. Finch says, not ashamed exactly, but the number one person who gaslights me is my mom. She hates talking about the past and sometimes will provoke me to a point where I just feel mad. I can understand that. I am so sorry about that, Vintage. Welcome, JC Bear.
Hello, bear hugs to everybody. Hi in the chat.
Hi,
I
JC.
hi. I don't think I've ever been gaslighted. At least now I'm starting to. Now with your definition and so forth, I got to go back through some past memories. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, how can you tell, or what would be like the subtle differences between, how two people can look at something or look at something happening and they'll have a very different perspective on it, like a car accident. So how can you tell like a difference between two different perspectives versus being gaslit?
Well, two different perspectives are just that. It's their view or vision of what is occurring. Being gaslit is them trying to talk you out of your reality.
So
Saying how you saw it is not it whatsoever.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've had a couple of arguments in my past with people like that.
It's a manipulation.
Okay. Because that's where I was having some difficulties, because I'd like to think that I never been gaslit, but I'd have to kind of go through and examine some things in the past with friends and family to kind of really see, what their views or what they were trying to present as opposed to what really occurred.
Well, think of it like this. Let's say that you were involved with someone, right? And maybe you suspected that they were flirting with someone.
Okay, that's happened in the past, yeah.
And maybe they were. And you said something to them about it. And instead of fessing up to it, they tell you that you're just being sensitive or you're being paranoid.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. So far I'm following you, yep.
So they're gaslighting you.
True.
They're manipulating your reality.
Yeah, because that happened more in my heavier dating, like in my 20s when I was younger, as opposed to now when I'm dating or if I see somebody and go out. So, yeah, I can see. Yeah, okay. I'm starting to get the gist of the subtleties of it now, or a little more of the subtleties of it now.
I mean, they're convincing you that you're in the wrong instead of admitting that they're wrong.
True. Deflection. Okay. Now, in your professional capacity or with any of the research, have you found this happens more with men, women, or is it been kind of equal?
Hey, hello, Kennedy, and I'm bringing Priya up too. Welcome to the room, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
In my experience, I think men tend to do it more, although women aren't far behind.
Yeah.
It's just for different reasons.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to speak a little something on what y'all were discussing earlier, because I actually was thinking about it, and I kind of had an interesting way of thinking about it. I think whenever you were asking what's the difference between like a difference in perspectives versus gaslighting, I would like to go back to what Dana was just saying about, say you thought that your boyfriend was like flirting with somebody, and like, I don't know, he was laughing real hard at all their jokes, stuff like that. I would be like, hey, that kind of felt like you were flirting. To me, a difference of perspectives, the correct response or a good response for him to say would be, oh, wow, I'm sorry, I really didn't view it that way. I really wasn't trying to flirt with them, but I can understand why you may think that or why your point is valid, and not make a point to invalidate your view, but explain their separate view. However, gaslighting would be like, no, that never happened, and they would be shutting down everything that you were having to say about what you saw.
Or you're being ridiculous, or you're being paranoid, or you're being too sensitive, or
right, and using terms like that to insult you for speaking up about it.
It's kind of like turning it around, like what you saw is not what you're seeing.
Right, and trying to say, like, especially saying things like, oh, you're crazy, and things like that, making a point to almost like verbally abuse you for speaking up about something. And in my opinion, that means that what you saw was absolutely right, because there should be no reason that they would respond like that.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool.
I mean, it's kind of a form of abuse.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's the difference. I mean, like, if there was a cat going down the road, and depending on my vision and the way the sun hits the cat, right? Mm-hmm. I might say that cat is gray. Another person might say the cat's light black. That's the difference in two different perspectives.
Right.
But saying that there was never a cat there, what are you thinking, is more like the gaslighting.
Right.
Right.
Okay, cool. That helps me a lot. Now I got to go back and think throughout my past, because I've never thought of myself, like, usually I've always been able to call somebody out on what they're saying to me if I don't think that that's the way things happened.
Mm-hmm.
But now I got to go back and rethink a few things from, especially in the family perspective, mm-hmm. on how things may have occurred.
And a lot of times you'll find yourself getting frustrated because maybe you're having a conversation with somebody and you find it's going nowhere, and they don't want to hear a thing you have to say, right? And you feel like you're coming from two different places, and they're just like dodgeballing you, saying something entirely different, like you're a dummy. Chances are you're getting gaslit.
Okay, cool.
And see, I had to go back and look at various things and have some aha moments. And it was like, whoa, what a dummy I was for not seeing. And I really wasn't a dummy, but it was, I had to do a lot of self-introspection years ago to really understand.
Yeah, there's been a few life events where I now have to kind of like re-examine what some people said to me and stuff like that. So,
and especially,
okay, cool.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Especially like whenever we bring up stuff like this, not only do I like think back to like how other people have treated me, but like I definitely like to use it as a moment for character development, of course, in myself. And I try to think back, like, have I ever acted like this to somebody else as a reflection of what's happened to me? Because that's not something that I ever want to do. And I think that, becoming aware is a very important part of becoming a better person.
No, that's true.
And you think about it, sometimes parents, not in a way to try to hurt their kids, I'm going to bring up my daughter, sometimes parents have been guilty of saying, oh, you're okay, get up, it doesn't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tiny bit of gaslighting.
Yeah, that's true. And I've seen that more on sports teams and shake it off. Yeah. I've seen it more on the sports field type of deal in team sports,
Yeah.
where you can actually end up being seriously injured, and for the sake of, everybody saying, no, come on, just shake it off, you can get back in. And unless you collapse, you're back on the field, or back in the gym floor.
It's not so much to shake it off, it's to saying you're okay, you're not hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's those words.
And it's become so normalized over time too.
Yeah.
Or you shouldn't feel that way, or that's not that you shouldn't feel hurt, you shouldn't feel this, or
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But Priya, it's past 1 a.m. You've been on here and you're mute. Come on, say something. Join.
Yes. Tell us your message, Priya.
Okay, so my sister is accusing me, my mum and dad of gaslighting her. So I kind of wanted your guys' thoughts on it. So over a year ago, we found out that both my parents, this is their second marriage, and they were both married before. My mum's husband died 7 days after they got married, and then my dad actually had a child with his first wife, and then his first wife wanted a divorce, and they went to court and blah, 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 and he didn't get visitation rights, and he wasn't allowed to see the child. And then when my sister found out, she completely collapsed mentally, I would say, and she kind of lashed out on everyone. She felt like everyone hid this from her, and she was really hurt about it. But she would start causing arguments about it for over a year. So she would just randomly bring it up, like, Dad, do you not love your son that you don't want to see him? Did you not go and try and see him? And I was like, I can't. I was legally not allowed to. And then it would cause into her saying, but you could have just gone and seen him. And there was like a misunderstanding, and it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And I think there's resentment on my sister's side, to the point that last June, she completely got contact with the whole family and said we were gaslighting her, we were upsetting her. My parents were like, this was stuff that was done way before you were born. It was kind of like years before I got remarried to your mum, and we wanted to start afresh. That's why we didn't tell you. So I don't know. She accused us of all gaslighting her. Whenever we tried to talk to her about the situation, she would always say, you're lying, that's not the truth. She kind of, I don't know. She definitely accused us of blackmailing her and gaslighting her. She's like starting to talk to us now, over 8 months later, but I don't know. Do you think it was gaslighting? How do you define gaslighting?
Well, I mean, they've come forth and told her the truth now. They just didn't admit the truth to you guys till later, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, they told you the truth as adults, or did you find out on your own?
So I found out on my own 6 years before she found out, but I found out because I'm the only person in the family that actually does like the paperwork, like reads, writes, and I was looking through documents and found my dad's old will and kind of put two and two together, but never mentioned it to anyone. And then my mum mentioned it to my sister and to me, and that's where it's just blown up from.
Well, the mistake they made is not admitting it at some point, because stuff comes out eventually. But insofar as gaslighting, it would be if you guys said something to them and they said that wasn't true. So it's not actually gaslighting per se. It's just not coming forth with the truth.
Yeah.
But also, I agree with you, Dana, but there's also a portion where kids, and I don't mean this in a bad way, don't realize that their parents had a life before they came along. And if the parents have never shared their life before the kids were born, this could come as a very big shock. So that could also be part of your sister's feeling that she doesn't really know your parents.
Right.
I mean, there was some things like throughout the years, I found out that my mom was engaged before my dad to a different man, but he was killed in a car accident. And then after they both passed, we stumbled across, love letters that my mom and dad wrote to each other that we just kind of put back in. My sister wouldn't let me read them, but I mean, so private things like that you discover, or if your parents don't share what happened like before you guys were born, it can come as a very big shock to them. Shock to any kid, doesn't matter what age, when you do discover, oh, so my parents were like this, or my parents did that, or so forth. So that may also be contributing to your sister's feeling that she doesn't really know who her parents are.
Absolutely. Because you grow up seeing your parents one way and you think that you know them. And then for her to find out this information and then find out there's another sibling, she feels like all of you are strangers to her. And then find out that you knew, on top of it, there's a lot of betrayal, anger, feeling like her parents are strangers. You see what I'm saying? So I feel like she just flipped out for a while. And now she's starting to communicate because she misses family. And there's a lot of pieces that have to be put back together and a lot of healing that has to occur. And it cannot be forced, if that makes any sense.
But it's like any time I try to say anything on the topic, she would be very not receptive to it and say, stop blackmailing me, stop gaslighting me, I don't want to hear your point of view. And like multiple times I tried to reach out to her and just try and talk about it, and she just completely cuts me off that my opinion doesn't matter. And that's what's been happening for the whole 2 years now. Whenever my parents say anything about what happened, she's like, no, that's wrong. Your view is wrong.
She just wasn't ready. You get what I'm saying? Right, wrong, or indifferent. People handle things in different ways, and she just wasn't ready. And sometimes the more you push people and the more you try to make it hurry up and get better, the more people withdraw. And it has to be on her time. And I know that's not the answer you want or your parents want, and she didn't handle it well. And her saying, no, you're wrong, maybe a tiny, tiny form of gaslighting, or maybe that's just the way she feels. But eventually it's going to come back together. But she just feels like she's walked into, I assume, into another alter universe. You get me? And she can't wrap her brain around now at this point, as all of you are grown, why there's not a relationship with that brother.
Well, she's actually developed a relationship with the brother, and I just have no interest in developing that relationship.
But your dad and your mom, right? Your dad has not, I'm assuming?
Yeah. No, because he wasn't legally allowed to.
But he's an adult now. So that changes things.
So this brother, I'm 25, and this brother is like 55 and has 3 children of his own.
Right.
And like my dad doesn't feel like it's something he should do. And we found through my sister found out that he even like sent a private detective to look for his dad, and saw his dad had another family and that was happy, and then didn't want to interrupt that. So it's just kind of still disrupted the whole family. And I even asked, I reached out to this brother to try and contact him to like help me talk to my sister, and he just refused. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
I'm sorry. In my
I
experience,
don't know. Were we gaslighting? Oh, no worries. Sorry.
I think the key to healing this is your father.
Yeah. I don't think you were gaslighting her, like, in the slightest. Because, I mean, you didn't have any malicious intent, behind not telling her. I think, I mean, at least from my perspective, not telling her was to her benefit at the time because, I mean, like my mom said, she wasn't ready, and that's a lot for anybody to handle, and people handle shocking events like that differently. And the way she handles the event doesn't truly show, I think, what she thinks of you as a person and her opinion of you. It's just when we're in I'd say like a traumatic event or anything that's just like shocking, like we show a side of us that doesn't really depict our true nature when it comes to how we view the people we love. And sometimes we don't handle situations correctly, and sometimes we don't handle the people we love correctly because we don't know how to handle this information ourselves.
right.
And so I don't think that you were in the slightest bit manipulative to your sister, because I know that you didn't have any bad intentions.
And it has
It's
nothing to do with her, really. It has everything
yeah,
to
it has nothing to do with you, honestly. It's not a situation you caused in the slightest, and it's horrible that you're in the position that you're in because you have nothing to be at fault for, in my opinion. So
It has everything to do with your parents had a life before. Your mom was married and lost a husband. Your dad was married and divorced and had a child before. That's the pinnacle right there. I mean, she was shocked they had lives before, but she's even more shocked that he has a child that he never had a relationship with. And understandably, he couldn't have one, but the child grew up. The child was grown by the time you two came along. So it's more about your dad is the key to healing this. And it has less to do with you. It only has to do with you because you are more understanding of what's going on with mom and dad.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
she wants to get her heard. She wants to be heard by your dad, and she wants to understand more. And I feel like your mom and dad just want her to say, this was before me and I'm okay. She wants to, there needs to be a dialogue. And I know that she ran and was dealing with her pain and was disillusioned and mad and upset, but it sounds like she's taking baby steps now. But I hope that your parents can understand that this just was highly traumatic to her, and the way she was dealing with it was just the way she was dealing with it as a hurt child that happens to be grown.
I think the biggest obstacle is that every time my parents try and explain their point of view or what happened, she turns around and says, "You're lying. It's a lie. I don't believe you." So it's that huge communication issue where it just doesn't work. And the way I got involved was trying to talk to her, and I just got months of text abuse from her because she's currently in Switzerland at the minute and I'm in London. Just like her just shouting obscene things at me. And it was horrible to the point where I've cut contact because it was really affecting me
Right.
in a period where like my whole life was falling apart.
Yeah. This is why you have to make it about she and her parents. When it gets healthier, where you and she can connect like sisters and it not be about this in an unhealthy way, then reconnect. But right now, the healing needs to take place with she and your parents. I mean, you have to think about, although you both are grown, inside the pain she's feeling is like she's small. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely it does.
She's feeling the pain of a small child, not of an adult woman. Because she feels like her whole life's been a lie.
Which
That's what I'm sensing. So it creates a whole another set of dynamics. And you can't fix that. And so all of the other stuff was just, to me, in my opinion, when she would have all that negativity and toxic stuff with you, was just deflected towards you, and it wasn't about you. You know, sometimes we lash out at the ones we love the most. And I sensed that before all this happened, that you and she were pretty close, right?
Actually, we weren't. Like, as sisters, we argued all the time.
Well, that's
kept in
common.
contact when we wanted to.
But you know what I mean? Deep down, you loved each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Sisters argue. I mean, I don't have one, but I've seen that. But it will come around and get better.
Yeah, it's just a painful situation, and when you're accused of being blackmailing or gaslighting, how do you know you're doing it or you're not?
And
Is
blackmailing,
it solely on the other person and
I mean, how can you blackmail? That's like saying, you know, give me $1 million and I'll give you these nasty pictures or something. I mean, how are you blackmailing somebody? Maybe she's using incorrect words.
That's what Jenny M actually commented earlier. She said that maybe she's just using incorrect terminology. She might mean triggering, like you might be triggering negative emotions and negative situations out of her, which I definitely think is what she might mean. And I would definitely say, like, I feel like I wouldn't say that I've been in a situation like this before, because it definitely sounds like a very tough situation, but I have been trying to kind of put myself in her shoes and see, why would she act like that? You know, why would she be saying those things and doing those things to you? And the thing that I could think of, like the best advice that I could think to give based off of if I were in that situation would be, you know, like Dana said earlier, she's going to take baby steps to you and just let her do that. Don't try to take steps towards her, because if she's feeling threatened, that's going to cause her to revert right back to that, you know? And, you know, definitely move at her pace.
Topic, but she needs to come to me.
Right. Yeah. It's something you can't push her a certain way. I understand, like, the feeling of, oh, this is my sister, I just want to fix what's hurting her and I want to take care of her hurt, but you just have to let her work through things on her own for a little while, and when she's ready, she'll be ready, and you'll know. But you can't make someone better. You know, you can't make this situation any more easy for her to deal with, because it's not easy for anybody. But I think she also lashes out, like Kennedy said, because she feels threatened, kind of. And it's that inner child in her that's scared and confused. You know, like my mom said, it's not the adult making the decisions on how she's acting. She's acting from the viewpoint of a child because these are her parents. And your parents are supposed to be your safety net. You're supposed to always be able to trust everything your parents say and do. And then that core value has just been like ripped from her, is what it feels like. So she's having to completely reevaluate everything she's known about her parents, and that's overwhelming for anybody. But when it's supposed to be the people you should trust the most, and you think you know more than anybody else, it's scary. And I mean, I think it's great that she has you to support her, but I think that anytime she lashes out at you, it's not directed at you. I think you're just kind of collateral damage.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
She doesn't know where to direct her feelings because she's all over the place right now. But I feel like she feels safer kind of to express those feelings to you rather than the direct cause, which is your parents.
Because you're going back to the beginning of history with your mom and dad, so that immediately reverts her back to child.
Yeah.
At the core of her being. I mean, it's a real psychological mind game. You just had the wherewithal to be able to cope a little better.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it affected you on some levels, but you had a few years of knowing to also process it longer. You see what I'm saying? Priya?
Yeah, to be honest, when I found out, and then like I read documents, I read an old will that said it, and then I found a picture that was just in our house hanging, and that I never really asked about, and I never really took notice for, and it was him. Like, you would never think that, but like we just didn't ask any questions or never really thought about it. It was in my sister's room when she grew up.
Yeah. And so that's even, it's like right in front of her face and she never knew.
Like I didn't know at the time either. And then I found the photo, and then it kind of like, oh, maybe this isn't my cousin that I thought it was. It's actually him.
Yeah. So, I mean, really the responsibility lays in your parents' lap. So
yeah, and I spoke to my parents about it, and they're like, what time do you tell them? Do you either tell them when they're growing up, like, oh, by the way, we were married before? Like, does a kid understand that concept? Or do you wait until they're older where they can like process it and understand?
I told Eden from the time she was little that I was married before.
It takes away the shock factor.
Yeah, I feel like if I'd found out when I was this age, it would have been a lot for me. But I think the fact that I grew up with that information, it became normalized. It was just normal for me. It wasn't hard for me to accept.
Yeah, I think another aspect is like we're Asian, so in the Asian community, getting divorced or not, like getting widowed is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And it's such a big thing. And when you like get married, like my parents made promises to the people, like to everyone involved, saying that like they're not going to involve the past. It's completely fresh start for both of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So like I feel like that played into it.
Yeah, and I don't think that like.
But for me, it still feels weird. Like, oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just saying that I don't like. We're not trying to like take a jab at your parents or blame them, because I understand within that culture, the idea of divorce is thought of as shameful, highly shameful, and so it's. I can see it from all sides as to why they decided not to say anything, but I can also understand what you and your sister are feeling to an extent. I mean, I've never been in the situation myself, but from an outside perspective, I can see both sides and the reasoning behind both. And I don't think that any one person is like the bad guy here.
No.
It's just a difficult situation for anybody to handle, and everybody's going to handle it differently because people are individuals. I think it's just learning how to support like your sister, you know, and the best way to support her in the way she's processing it. And I'd say that is just to take some steps back and let her work through it on her own. And even if it's a year from now or longer, when she is ready to come to you, I think eventually things will start to settle again. But it feels impossible for her right now. I think everything just feels impossible, and she feels like she's probably playing catch up with figuring out her life, you know, like I said, reevaluating everything. But there's no one person in the wrong here, and you're not at fault for anything, any of it. I don't want you to beat yourself up over it, because you're not at fault for this.
No, I don't beat myself up. I just wish that at the minute, I feel like she just has such a narrow view, and she's always right, and she's always felt like her opinion is always right since she was a little child. So I feel like that's where she's playing at the minute.
Yeah.
I feel like she just needs to see the bigger picture and the wider thing and everything that affected it, and maybe she'll start to understand. But that will take time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, she has to eventually reconstruct her view of your parents, and that will take time. And for your parents, it's probably very painful memories, and that's probably why they didn't want to share that part of their lives with you and your sister, based on the feelings towards divorce, having another child, you know, reliving the passing of someone that was your spouse is always painful, no matter how the years have gone on. So it's probably things from the parents' point of view. If they talked about it, they almost have to relive it. So that's probably, I'm not making excuses for them, but it's probably, that's why they never shared that part. But you have to give your sister time, like Eden said and so forth, to reconstruct her image of your parents. And just as long as you remain open to communicating with her, I think that's the best thing that you can do, in my opinion.
Yeah. And just like she said, because culturally, you know, there are things that are judged or looked upon. Eventually, your sister's going to miss family.
Yeah.
And you just, of course, you can't worry about it anymore. You've done all you can do. But
Yeah,
I don't
think
consider it.
That's why she slowly, like, after 8 months of nothing, started calling every so often when she wants to.
Right.
Because she started to get to that point where she does miss family.
It's difficult.
Yeah, it was just really frustrating when, like, she's having arguments saying to my dad that, like, you left a son, so you deserve to lose a daughter. And it was, like, quite manipulative on her part, but then she turns it around and calls us manipulative. It's just so frustrating. It was so down.
Yeah. Life can be hard.
Anyway, I think I'm taking up most of the time. I think someone should share a story.
I mean, I used to be married to somebody that would be like, don't worry about it. You worry too much. Or you're too, he would say things to me like, you're just being too sensitive. Or don't be ridiculous. Or that's not the way it went. And, you know, just drive me crazy when I would try to have a discussion with him about things. And would try to turn my thinking around. And sometimes I would sit back and go, you know, am I really being that way? Maybe I am being too hard on him, or that kind of thing, to make me rethink what I was upset about. Until there came a point that I was just like, heck no. And I'd get mad as you know what. You know, eventually I got some sense about me. But it just takes a long time. And sometimes it takes reflection on relationships you got out of. That's what makes it hard. And there's some of you are too young to know whether you have been in them. But anyway, whoa, there's a loud cat.
Victor.
Always.
So JC Bear doesn't know whether he's been in one or not.
No, now that I've gotten a little more clarification, I think I have to go through some past dealings with family to actually clarify a couple of items.
Mhm.
But when it comes to friends, I've usually been able to call them out on it, because usually my memory was better than theirs. So, but yeah, I just needed some more clarification on those subtle differences that you ladies gave me. So now I can actually have that type of view when I'm going through some of the past items.
I mean, if you have been gaslit enough, it makes you feel like that you can't do anything right.
Or that you can't trust your own memory.
Right.
You can't trust yourself in general. You can't trust yourself to make your own decisions, to be your own person.
And haven't you met people that you wonder why they feel insecure and they can't make a decision, and they always have to ask for help, and they act very timid,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
always need guidance?
Yeah, I never understood that now, and I've always found a lot of them to be quite intelligent and quite, quite good at what they're doing, but they always seem to want that reassurance.
So, I mean, chances are they're in that kind of relationship. Bottom line, it's another form of abuse. And if you do watch some of these shows, like, what was that show? Something John. Recently, it was a true story that came on.
Dear John.
Yeah, Dear John. Nothing related to Dear Dana, by the way. But Dear John, where he kept hooking up with the women.
Yes, but it wasn't me.
And he was like the perfect guy. And he was doing all the right things. And he was very clever, and he was very charming, and all of this other stuff. He was taking all the women's money, and he was gaslighting them left and right. Or also the guy that was, I hate to say it, back in the day, so good looking, that was taking all the girls' lives.
Who?
Back in the 70s.
Ted Bundy?
Ted Bundy. He was also very good at gaslighting.
True.
Very charming. I mean, he was a sociopath, and he also did other things, but he would, if their guard was up or the red flags went up or they were afraid something might happen, he would convince them that what they thought they were believing wasn't true. If they were afraid that they were in danger or that something could happen, he would convince them otherwise, that what they thought was happening wasn't the reality, that they were actually safe in his hands. That's a form of gaslighting. Unfortunately, sometimes even young teenage guys do that.
I mean, I've seen that like a lot, like with my friends, and like Kennedy, knows, and I've known.
Oh, I thought you were about to say I do it.
No, not you. But there's people we've known that, like, I mean, gaslighting can even come across as like you saying like, say I said X, Y, and Z, and then someone says, "You're crazy. You're crazy. You need to calm down. You're just being crazy." Like, that's gaslighting. Something as simple and small as making remarks like that on like a regular basis. That's gaslighting someone, demeaning them.
Didn't happen. That didn't
happen.
Like,
oh, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. I wouldn't do something like that. I'm not that kind of person. Like, and it's so common. Like, I see it happen with, like, people, like, my age all the time. I think it happens in, like, young relationships a lot, especially with people who don't really understand what healthy relationships are and what they should be like. It's just so normalized, and I think a lot of it has to do with, like, the people, a lot for some people, you know, like how they're raised and like the way their parents are when it comes to like their own personal problems or issues. Like if you're being raised by someone who tells you, oh, it's not a big deal, get over it, you know, or like you shouldn't be upset over that, that's going to come into play into your relationships and how you treat people. And I see that a lot with people like me and Kennedy's age.
Or let's say that a guy is convincing you that him wanting something from you, or taking it too far, he's taking it too far, and he is bow chicka bow bow, and you don't want it, and he's convincing you it's making love, right, when it's actually not. You get what I'm saying? And you know that he did something you didn't want, and he's considering it, oh no, we made love. And you're like, no, we didn't. I didn't want that. That's gaslighting to the extreme. We can call it other words. I'm not going to call it here on this live, but you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to change your perception and manipulate you into thinking it's making love. So you can't think straight. You don't know what was true or not.
Right.
I mean, it comes in all forms. Look, let's think about, and this is like pushing it. If anybody watches Real Housewives, like Real Housewives on Salt Lake City, like Mary is a preacher. And I'm not saying all preachers do it, but some preachers that are to the extreme, I'm not saying regular preachers, will gaslight people all day long.
Oh yeah.
About what they do with the money. Not all preachers. In my opinion, 90% of preachers are good preachers. Let me put that out there to the public. But you will have some bad preachers that call themselves preachers.
Right.
The ones that float around and set up shop just to take advantage of people.
Right.
Or some business people that do that even.
Right.
That gaslight people and say they're doing one thing. Does anybody have an example of that? They'll set up shop and say they're doing one thing and try to convince the people they're doing one thing.
If this was a political show, we would have tons of examples.
Yeah, but it's not. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Try to skew the public's reality and say they're doing one thing and make the people think their reality is one thing when it's not.
Well, I do have a personal example, but it doesn't really have to do as much with like any sort of religion or like church or anything or like any business person. It's more so like an example in personal relationships that I've had even from a very young age and had very young kids doing things like this. But you and Eden have probably already heard about this. It was a long time ago, but it was a very crazy situation. I was dating a guy for about 6-ish months, and my best friend at the time was seeing him behind my back like the whole time. And basically, I saw a lot of clues ahead of time, but I would say when she gaslit me, I was very prone to accepting it very quickly because I wouldn't say I have the most dysfunctional family, but I've grown up around some degree of gaslighting in my life. And so I remember there was one time I went on her phone and I saw just, oh my gosh, like a bunch of calls between the two of them happening very late at night at no time that two good pals would be talking. And I was always like, what's that? And she would literally just be like, no, that's not what it was. You didn't see that. And I would just be like, okay. But that was definitely a degree of her saying, like, if you know, claiming that one thing was happening when really another was happening, because she kept claiming, no, we're just friends. Or anytime I'd see them flirting, she would even say really crazy stuff like, oh, that was just a test to see if he would not be loyal to you.
Yeah.
And things like that, claiming that they're doing one thing when they're really doing another behind your back, and they're trying to use gaslighting as a form of hiding their true intentions.
I'm doing this in your best interest as your friend.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, we were just talking because he wants to get you a gift and he was asking my opinion on what you like.
Oh, things like that all the time. Or one time
Yeah.
she told me that she was talking to some other guy but didn't want her mom to know, so she replaced his name in their phone with my boyfriend's name. And I said, so your mom wouldn't be upset that you were talking to my boyfriend at 3 a.m.?
Yeah, that's yeah.
It was
I got nothing for you.
Yeah, she even got in the way of me and Kennedy's friendship and tried to completely kick me out of Kennedy's life.
Oh yeah, like things like I'd get out of the shower and she'd be like, your friend Eden just called you and she said that you were like dumb and all this and that. And I would always just brush it off because I mean, I was always like, I don't know, a lot of stuff she says is fishy, but I never wanted to really believe it. So I would just try to ignore it or even pretend like that didn't happen and move on. But at some point you got to face things like that.
Yeah, it was like I would try to call Kennedy and then my call would automatically get declined, and it was like this for a while. And then I was like, why is she not picking up? Yeah, and then all of a sudden this person contacts me and is like, Kennedy doesn't ever want to speak to you again. Kennedy doesn't want to be your friend. And I'm like, what? I missed a few chapters. What happened here?
Yeah, she did that with a lot of my close friends when she felt threatened too.
Yeah.
So it is isolating your intended, for lack of a better word, target. Is this something that's normal when someone's trying to gaslight someone?
I mean, it can go along with it because it's helpful to help you, or not help you, hopefully. It's helpful for the gaslighter to change that person's reality.
Yeah.
Because
if you think about it.
If there's nobody else to interfere with this story, this narrative that they're trying to push onto you, then they have free range, to do whatever they want and say whatever they want. But the second someone comes in and it's like a naysayer to whatever they're trying to push, then it makes it harder on them. So if they can isolate you from people who actually have good intentions for you, then that's perfect for them.
Or that can back up your truth. That's why it is very helpful. How do you realize you are being gaslit? Well, you can realize that you're being gaslit if you question your own reality, if you're always saying you're sorry about something, if you're apologizing a lot, you're being gaslit. If you are having trouble making your own decisions, if your self-confidence is low, if you have trouble knowing if something is a reality,
right?
If you don't feel like that you can stand up to the person with any valid conversation, for lack of better.
If you feel like you can't trust your own memories.
Right. It is helpful to have backup for certain memories, like friends that were in the same position that heard the same things, pictures. That's why I say it's real helpful to have journals. Even if you wrote down for that day, I went to the bank, I went to the store, I talked to so-and-so, we chatted about this. If it's just simple sentences, it helps you stay in touch with your reality or know who you spoke to or whatever. So they're not changing what is the reality of what's going on in your life. If someone is saying that you're being too sensitive, or that's not what's going on,
or like Priya said, if you're exaggerating.
Yeah.
Exaggerating, yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to change your perspective to theirs.
Yeah, vintage optimism. Yeah, it's when you question your feelings. And you're feeling manipulated all the time. It's definitely about manipulations.
Would you mind if I ask Eden and Kennedy a question?
No.
Okay, so as you may or may not know, I'm an uncle to 2 young nieces that will be approaching, one's 10 and one's 8.
No.
So, which will go very quick. I know it will.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
going to be starting to entering, the whole high school, whole dating and relationships. What kind of things should I kind of look out for if I think that the person they're involved with, be it a man or a woman, or a boy or a girl, would kind of trigger them being me to kind of like step in and kind of go, whoa, okay, something's not right?
I think if they're dating someone, and I mean, it can be hard to pick up on signs because usually the people that are like not good for them are smart about how they handle the situation, and it can take a while before anybody on the outside like realizes what's going on. But like if you see them maybe dressing a different way that they usually don't dress, or like you don't think they're being genuine to themselves, that could be, them being influenced by whoever they're dating. If What do you think, Kennedy? What are some examples?
For me, one of the things that I noticed in myself that is so subtle, but is like one of a huge telltale sign that I've been gaslit, is if you, like, for example, somebody will say, like, they walk in the room, a glass is broken. They'll go, oh, what happened? And I never feel like I can truly, like, I tell them the story, but I never feel like I can truly trust my own story. So I'll always say, oh, I think that the cat knocked it down. But I know that the cat knocked it down, but I don't want to tell them for sure because I'm scared that they're going to say, no, that's not the truth, And a lot of just hesitancy and, the things that Dana said earlier were signs of it. A lot of timidness and very like nervous and things like that, especially in scenarios where you really don't feel like there's any need for them to feel nervous or threatened. And also just by being asked simple questions and stuff like that, if that kind of makes them feel defensive or, something like that, that's a big sign that whoever they're with or anybody, not even just a partner, somebody who they've been spending a lot of time around has definitely been giving them some level of emotional abuse because they feel like they can't be sure of themselves.
Yeah, and I also think like it'd be really good if you can get them in like a casual scenario where you can see them interact with each other, especially if like one of your nieces is usually like larger than life personality, very outspoken person, and is like very like just jovial in general. And then if you see like they're around their partner and they just become really timid and they don't talk much, and if they're usually a more dominant personality in general, and then you see them become like more submissive around this person, then that's a big sign that something's not right.
Or looking to them like, oh, let me see what he says, or let me see what she says.
Like, I'll go ask him, or I'll go ask them real quick what they think, or like I have to make sure that they're okay with me wearing this, or they're okay if I'm out at this time, or if I go out with these people,
Vintage optimism, real quick, I'm sorry, is asking, is gaslighting a form of a sociopath? It is not a form of a sociopath, but a sociopath usually uses that as a tool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Looks like I'm going to be inviting my nieces and their other halves out for a lot of lunches just to see them in their natural surroundings.
Yeah, good idea.
I was going to add, even if it were the other way around from what Eden said, that would still throw off red flags to me. If they are normally a very quiet and reserved person, but around whoever they're with at the time, they feel like they need to act out or be a larger than life person than they normally are, I would say that that's also a sign that they're being abused or anything, but they might be, not feeling like they can fully be themselves.
Anything that like you can tell that they're straying from their baseline. behavior when they're around this person, then I'd see that as a red flag.
Okay, good.
Because
I
let
got
me
some.
tell you, by the time they get out of the 5th grade, out of the 5th grade, it's like it goes in this kind of speed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great! The
Well,
first
you
one's
had that.
getting out of 5th grade this year. Thanks, Dana.
I'm not even kidding.
Oh yeah, Priya also said if the contact with their family and friends lessens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to lessen a tiny bit because
Yeah,
they
but
start to be more peer related. I mean, peer motivated, wanting to spend time with their peers and their family.
yeah, but like if it's like taking a negative toll on their relationships between their friends and family.
Growing
That's-
independent is good, but growing completely isolated from family and friends is not
Yeah.
okay.
That cat is so loud.
I can't. It's because you're in
Can you
there.
show
He
us,
hears you.
Victor?
It wants to be on screen.
Please,
You want me to show him?
Sure. But bottom line is gaslighting associated. Well, it did rain and beat me to it. Every negative, abusive trait we can have sociopaths. We can have. Hello, Victor.
Oh,
That's
look
the
at how chunky he is.
biggest cat. Anything where it's a manipulative, abusive, harmful, psychological disposition that is harmful to other people in some way, will use gaslighting as a tool. Again, people can be aware of using it as a tool, but also people can be unaware of using gaslighting because they come from families that have used it and not been aware of using it. Because at some point, people used it and weren't aware over decades ago. Again, I said, even parents to some small degree have used it innocently, not aware. Like saying, if a kid falls down and scrapes their knee, they'll go, oh, it's a boo-boo, you're okay. I'm guilty. I'm guilty of that. You're okay. You're going to be okay. Or, Mama's got it. You're okay. I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been burning like fire, but I wanted her to be okay so bad. I said, you're going to be okay, or you're okay. That's some tiny form of gaslighting.
Right.
I'm guilty.
Well, yeah, I've done the same with my nieces when, things have happened. It's like the tiny form, not the big form.
No, I mean, I feel bad about it, but we've all done some tiny form of it. It's the big bad, I'm trying to manipulate and control you form.
Yeah, those are the key items that Eden and Kennedy have given me some signs to be aware of, especially when they start entering the more social aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And when you, yeah. And if you see it going on at work, it happens on your job. It happens with your boss.
Oh, my boss lately.
Oh,
doing
Kennedy's
that.
boss.
Oh man, yeah. The other
Well,
day
give an
she
example.
The other day she told me my normal time to come in is 9 o'clock, right? 9 a.m. She told me that the day before she had asked me to come in at 7:30, and I told her, no, you didn't tell me that. You must have forgot. And she goes, no, I did tell you. Like, and I was obviously showing up on time for my shift, and she started getting really upset. She was like, I told you that. And I know she didn't, because I know I'm a little dingy. I could be a little forgetful, but I'm definitely not the person to forget big important things like that. I take my career pretty seriously. Eden can vouch for that. And the first time I was like, maybe I just forgot it wrong. But then it happened a second time. She moved my normal time to starting at 8:30, right? And so I went to go come in at 8:30, and she told me, I never told you to start coming in at 8:30. And I was like, yeah, you did. And then the other two managers who I have both go, yeah, you said that to her in front of us. And I even confirmed with her before I left, because I don't want to wake up 30 minutes earlier if I don't have to, you know? And she was like, I did not tell you that. I did not tell you that. And she got really defensive and angry and kind of like was mad at people for a couple days over it. And then finally she just goes, oh, you know, I guess I did say that. It was so weird.
That is definitely gaslighting. So it's helpful in that case, write things down.
Mm-hmm.
Date it and write it down, because then you can go back and say, I wrote it down.
Right.
Or have her text you the time she told you to come in.
I've told her to start messaging me now.
I mean, you will run into it on your job all the time, and unfortunately, it will be their fault, and they're so used to gaslighting people, they can use it for reasons to let you go. But if you have it written down, you have ways to defend yourself.
And they love to do it with younger people too. So if you're about to start your first job, anybody here, if there's any other people around our age here, or if you're about to start a new job or anything, definitely do it, because I think that either the new hires or the younger people are the most at risk, because they are an easy target, because people think people either don't trust the new hires enough yet to know that that's not in their personality, or they, you know, they can just shrug it off as, you know, I'm the youngest person there. So they're like, oh, she's just 18. She probably just forgot and thought about other stuff in her 18-year-old life, you know?
Well, I'm just saying, it's just not limited to romantic relationships
Right.
or friendships or anything like that. It happens in every aspect of your life, and it's more rampant than we even realize.
Right.
And it's good to be aware of it, because it is a deep form of abuse. It can cause you problems. It can make you question yourself. And we need to learn to have voice and to say no and to cut ties with toxic relationships that we don't need, and to learn how to handle the relationships that we can't step away from. So if I haven't taught you anything, it's time to learn those things, and to learn the small guilty ones that we're doing
Mm-hmm.
that may be affecting our own kids.
Right.
So I wish I had been more aware earlier.
Too much homework tonight. Too much homework.
I know, it feels like I'm getting a whole psychology class right now.
Well, Saturday nights I'm going to try to make more fun, and Wednesday nights I'm aiming to make more educational. So
Okay, fair enough. We're going to hold you to that.
I just figured I'd do it that way, because Saturday night, hey, it's Saturday night.
Come in with balloons and streamers.
You know, it's date night. I'm not going to strip or anything, because they'll shut me down before I'm even going good, and nobody wants to see that mess.
Hey, I'm looking like a Yeti now because we're still on lockdown up here. So
Yeah.
it's been since November since I've been able to get a beard trim, haircut. Hence, that's why I don't go live.
Oh, let me tell you, I'm about to get back into the fitness thing, because I'm just saying, I used to work out every single day, and I let COVID make me lazy. So if anybody wants to join me on a challenge, but let me say this, I appreciate all of you so much. This is my 5th night. I hope I was able to educate some peoples out there. I'm so happy that Jessie Bear came up, and Priya, I adore you. Thank you for sharing something educational, culturally, I can't even talk, culturally to us, as well as something so deep in your heart. And Eden, my daughter, thank you, and Kennedy, thank you for coming up and being so eloquent and
Yes,
sharing ideas and thoughts.
Yes,
And,
thank you for some advice for my nieces for me to be on the lookout for. God, I'm going to be the hovering uncle.
I just know you're their favorite uncle. My favorite uncle's name is John too.
Yeah.
And you talk
Yay!
just like him. You talk just like him too.
You sound a lot like him.
I think that they are very fortunate to have you, actually.
Well, the thing is that I know how to deal if it was a nephew. I know how to deal with that because being male and growing up. But when it comes to young women, I even have to catch myself on how I say stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's like, so I always tell them, you can do whatever you want. You can either do it well, you can do it badly, or you can do it okay. But if you really want it, go for it.
Oh, I remember a boss that knew I was Chilean and would manipulate me at work all the time. I'm adopted. My last name is Hungarian Jewish, and she would mess me every shift. That's not
Told me
good.
to mess with her, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, I hope that I have educated people. I hope I made you more aware. If you run into this and you want to DM me and ask my advice in the future, please do. I encourage everybody out there. If you are having a relationship, marriage, friendship, family problem, and you want some advice, please write me or pop on and come on live and share. We'll come up with some answers, advice, whatever. That's why we're Dear Dana. And I'm more than happy to share my knowledge with you, help you find some answers or some ways to cope with it. Also, I want to grow, and I would be so happy if we could reach 100. So the top of my channel could say Dear Dana and make it easier for people to find us. That is my goal right now. We're so close. And we have our home kitty here.
Victor's yelling.
Victor just wants to talk to everybody.
Victor's saying everybody subscribe to my mom. Victor's
Yes.
saying everybody needs to subscribe.
Like and
Yes.
subscribe. And if there is a topic that you want to talk about, remember, educational on Wednesdays, the more fun topics on Saturday nights.
Yay!
The more party topic. My dog is looking for Victor, Jenny said.
Victor, you want to say hi?
That cat is so loud tonight. He has a lot to say. That cat's like a panther. Show JC how big he is. I kid you
Show
not.
him his belly.
Oh
Let's
my
see the
God.
belly.
I mean, he's like big.
It's about 8 pounds of love coming at you every night.
Oh man, the
More like-
next time I held
more
him,
like
he was
13.
pulling out my arms.
Oh,
he's
wow.
more like-
13.
Yeah, he's huge. But anyway, I'm talking like we're just having a chat at home and visiting. And actually, that's the way I want people to feel. I'm so happy that Vintage Optimism, Ordered Steps, Priya, Jenny came on. You're making too much noise, my daughter.
I'm sorry, I knocked something over.
That Kim came. That I saw. Who else did I see? I saw Kennedy came, and I saw
Perlita.
Carlita. Yeah, that's who I was looking for. Angie was here. And if I missed anybody, please forgive me. Kennedy. And everybody else that I did not mention, thank you for coming. If there are any topics or anything that you would like to mention on this channel or have us discuss, please DM me at Dear Dana3 on Instagram. I am also on Twitter. And of course, you can find me here. And I will see you Saturday night. Thank you for showing up. And Victor wants to say goodnight too.
Air hugs, Victor.
I will see you all next time. Thank you for coming. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Good night.